of your seat. Feelings running high, they're the best in the world. They make that white ball fly. Who will it be? Who'll be the kings?
Welcome to our first post-match preview of the In the Clinic podcast. Today I have Abdul Ansari with me from Grassroots Cricket. Vermeet with me, who is a cricket analyst on Twitter. The 2023 World Cup started today. We saw New Zealand basically crushing England by 9 wickets. I'll open it up to you guys. Vermeet first, what were your quick takeaways from this first match?
I think surprise was the biggest reaction, because across Twitter, other social media platforms, even if you look at the experts, England was, one of the top 3 in everyone's mind. Some of them predicting them as winners. So, but now, something similar has happened to them. What happened to Pakistan 4 years ago, that your first loss is one where you've given another potentially semi-final competitor a big lead on the net run rate. So that's something they'll have to come back from. I think they lost with 14 overs to spare. I think 13.4 or 13.5 overs to spare.
Right, their net run rate is negative 2.1 now.
Yeah, so that's something they'll have to come back from. Plus, I was a bit surprised they didn't play Reece Topley, because I think they've taken the same approach we've seen Australia take recently, where they have a few specialist bowlers, but they're relying on a few all-rounders too to make up the 50 overs. I don't know, especially in the ODI format, where in the middle overs you need strike bowlers to succeed. They went with a different approach. It didn't work. So yeah, a bit surprised. I know we'll talk about their approach later on, but yeah, I think it's a big setback for them and a big surprise, given they were one of everyone's top 3 coming into the tournament.
Bill, anything to add? Your thoughts, your immediate reaction?
Yeah, I think it's pretty similar to Parmeet in that I think everyone was expecting England to at least do well and compete, if not win. And they didn't really even compete today. I think that everything that could go wrong for them basically went wrong today. And even despite a really terrible show with the bat, I thought they batted really badly. They did put up 280 on the board, but then they couldn't back it up with any kind of probing bowling. So I think that they'll get better from this. I would be really surprised if they have another similar result like this. And I think that they will bounce back, and I think that I still expect them to make the semi-finals. But from a New Zealand perspective, obviously it must be really heartening to see the way that they performed today, and their prospects of reaching the last 4, I think, would be severely improved after this display. And the way Ravindra played especially was pretty special, I think.
They have an easy fixture list coming up. I think their next 3 matches are basically against the Netherlands, Bangladesh, and Afghanistan, so they can easily rack up points pretty easily. They'd only have to win 1 additional game potentially to make it through. Quick 2-part question based on what you guys just said. Number 1, do we need to re-look at what a par score is going to be? Before, there was a lot of talk about 280, 290, sort of the par scores that the ICC will basically make sure it's larger boundaries. Do we need to address what a par score is? Are we looking at a baseline of 310 as a decent score? And 2, we mentioned England's failings with the batting. I think when Livingston fell in the 38th over, that was sort of the key turning point. Can they do Baz ball for 50 overs? Or is that too much pressure too soon, and the risk of losing wickets is basically what cost them here? If you want to take Parmeet.
Yeah, so regarding the par score, I think one issue, again, having not followed the other teams much when it comes to ODIs, but one issue we see with Pakistan, and we've seen over the past few tournaments too, is often teams just don't know what a good par score is, especially in conditions where you're playing on quite a few grounds, which we'll see in this tournament. I'm sure Abdullah Bhai might know, what each ground might offer. But we saw in Hyderabad, we saw in Ahmedabad, batting seems to become easy as the day goes on. Spinners don't seem to come into effect much. Dew might play a factor on some pitches. So I think the safe approach we'll see most teams take as the tournament goes on, of course, pre-knockout, will be batting second, which is because teams just don't know what the power score is. Based on the evidence of warm-ups, yes, a place like Hyderabad where Pakistan will be playing their first few games, you should expect uh, power scores in excess of 300. But luckily, our opponents there are ones we should be able to handle with relative ease, so it shouldn't be too big of an issue even if we bat first. Coming to your second question, when we think of baseball, I think England even getting to 280 played a part in a positive way in that. If you look at Joe Root's batting, this is the first time I saw him play reverse scoops in ODI cricket. And that's of course partly down to because he hasn't played much ODI cricket recently. We had seen that, of course, in test matches. So, big success to his innings was playing the new way he is adopted, taking more risks, which he doesn't really need to. He can play with his own style and still score fluently in ODI cricket. But I don't even think they took a baseball approach. I think we were discussing before the show started that around the 38th over, England were about 220 for 5. And that's a situation where teams end up scoring 340, 350. Teams like England, if Livingston hadn't gotten out at the stage where he did, we could be having a different talk altogether today. Because, of course, if you have a bigger score on the board, chasing side is under pressure, the result might have gone a different way. But sometimes, your attacking shots don't come off. So I don't think they tried to baseball, but even if they do, I feel there are certain grounds where it is conducive. We should keep in mind that boundaries in most grounds in India aren't that big, except a few. So even if they do go with the ultra aggressive approach, it can work. The only thing I think they need to probably refactor is bringing in Reece Topley in. I think just the job that Shaheen does for Pakistan with the new ball, where you in the middle overs you can delay a team's attack if you pick a few wickets up front. That's what Reece Topley has given them in his career so far. So again, surprised to see him not play, but hopefully he does play in the next few games, thinking from an England perspective. But then again, they probably have to reduce their batting depth, so they have to weigh which way they go. Bringing in Reece Topley is sort of anti-baseball, but I think different grounds will require different decisions from them.
I think that regarding the past scores, I feel that it's going to vary according to the grounds quite a bit. So Hyderabad, Ahmedabad, and especially Bangalore will have higher scores, and Hyderabad might also. So for us, the good thing is that our first two games in Hyderabad are relatively easier ones, like Parmeet pointed out, and that by the time we get to the other parts of India, we'll have a better idea of how the pitches over there are playing. Like now we know what to expect from Ahmedabad. There really wasn't much on offer today. Even though it has a reputation for offering some movement for the pace bowlers, especially early on, there really wasn't much today. So I think it's important to just see what's going on in the tournament and how the trends progress. But I'm sure that there will be some grounds where the scores will be up and down quite a bit. So regarding England's approach, I think that in recent ODIs, especially when they've played the likes of Phil Salt, then we've seen a bit more of baseball perhaps. Today it was more of their standard England ODI batting, which they just didn't execute their plans particularly well with. And I think that a little more measured approach would have probably gotten them, if they had quite a few poor dismissals, let's be real, but if a little bit of a more measured approach, and they would have been in a position to end up with the 320. But even with the 320, if they bowled like they did today, I don't think they would have particularly been successful defending that. So I think that, I think it was Nasir or someone on commentary who pointed out that Wokes was having a really bad day, and that sometimes happens, that a reliable bowler for you has a bad day. So you're not expecting that to happen every time, and I would expect Wokes to get better in the next few games. But if this became a pattern that Wokes starts struggling, then obviously they would need to look at reinforcing their new ball options. But if they have a functional attack where Wokes and Karan provide something up front and then Wood as the first change / enforcer, even though he did not perform either today, he was bowling really fast but going to the boundary even faster. So just a combination of factors that if one or two things fail, then if the components of your team aren't working well together, then that really damages you. So I don't think that they'll be particularly concerned about the approach with the bat or anything. I think they'll just be hoping for things to work out better, especially, and they might be looking to see what went wrong with Wokes today and whether they can get on track with the ball specifically, because I think that was the bigger worry for them.
They actually have a trickier fixture list coming up. I think they play South Africa and Sri Lanka as two of the next four games. Last couple questions real quickly. Surely Ravindra keeps his place even when Kane Williamson comes back. And then a quick look ahead to tomorrow. Do you expect Pakistan to just go with their first choice 11, or do you think they could potentially experiment, given that it is the Netherlands and it is in Hyderabad now for a week and a half?
Yeah, regarding Ravindra, I think when Williamson does come back in, I think he'll slot into the number 3 role, and I think that's been their plan all along. Even in the practice matches or I think in the past few series, when they knew or they got the sense that Williamson might be fit for the World Cup, they started batting Mitchell at 4, even though earlier this year he was batting at 3 versus Pakistan. So I think that number 3 is a lock for Williamson, but I think Rachin Ravindra will still stay in the team. Against Pakistan, he was batting down the order. They'll probably bring him, back to the same position at number 7, I think is where he was mostly playing. So I think that should be a straight swap. Who misses out? I'm not too sure. Regarding your question on Pakistan, I don't think they'll be experimental, especially given it's the first match of the tournament. Pakistan especially doesn't want to get a slow start, given this is one of the games that we expect them to win. They'll play their best team, and I think Usama Mir might be part of their best 11. Now, I don't think it would be an experiment to go with him. Sure, he got a bit of a tap in the warm-up game against Australia, but he still seemed your most potent option in the middle overs. Again, if you could get away with playing Nawaz or 4 bowlers against Netherlands, it won't be that big of a deal. But I think if they're trying to start the World Cup with an 11 that they hope performs well and continues for them in the tournament, I think they'll start with Usama, who they feel can be their second main spinner throughout the course of the tournament.
Yeah, I think with Ravindra, New Zealand's progression as a team has been interesting in that I think that they really wanted Finn Allen to be there to partner Conway at the top. They really like having an aggressor at the top there with Conway, who does the anchoring job really well. But his form just did not work out for them, and he just could not translate those promising displays into performances of note. So I think that they eventually went to Young as a compromise. But the way that Ravindra has batted, I almost feel like they might be tempted to open with him at this point so that they have that aggressor up there. And Young is a safer option, but he doesn't particularly have much experience of playing in Asian conditions, especially of playing in India. And while Ravindra has already gotten off to a great start, also he has the innings against Pakistan in the warm-up while opening. So I feel that they might be inclined to drop Young because they like the look of their middle order. Obviously, they'll have to accommodate Lockie Ferguson, so someone from the middle order will have to drop out anyway, whether that's Neesham or whoever it is once Ferguson is back. But I think that Ravindra might be opening if once Williamson returns.
And Golden Duck didn't help either.
Yeah, exactly. That can happen to anyone that on the first ball, he edged it down the leg side, but still, it's cricket and those little margins play a big role. So, yeah, if Williamson is back in the next game, then that Duck might cause him to be on the bench. And with Pakistan, I honestly don't know what they're going to do, what approach they take with the playing 11. I wouldn't be surprised if they went with either Nawaz or Osama, because both have shown promising signs, like Nawaz with the bat, and he also bowled decently against Australia. He could have had a couple more wickets. He dropped one catch himself, a return catch. So he also bowled well, and then he backed it up with a 50. Usama obviously bowled well. He brought Pakistan back into that game by dismissing the two openers. So I definitely think they'll play whatever they feel their best team is to start off the tournament. So whether that they go with Nawaz or Osama, I think that that will show us who is a bit higher in the pecking order. And then whoever plays tomorrow, I'm sure will get a run of a few games at least going forward.
Perfect. Thank you, gentlemen. We look forward to doing this with you guys throughout the course of the World Cup. Obviously, the schedule allows. I appreciate you guys coming on at short notice today.